Christmas music fills the streets as snow starts to fall. People laugh and walk through the soft white snow, and everything feels warm and happy. A small family walks through the crowd. The daughter looks at the lights and tells her parents this is the best day of her life. But they stop suddenly when a huge man blocks their path. The little girl looks up at him with wide eyes, full of surprise. The protagonist stares back at them in silence, not knowing what to say. After a quiet moment, he walks away alone into the crowd. He feels angry and very lonely. He walks toward the subway, his shoulders looking empty and sad. Just as he starts down the stairs, he stops. He sees someone familiar. It is an old man dressed as Santa, kneeling in the snow next to a sign that says, "Tell Santa your wish." Normally he would ignore this, but tonight is Christmas Eve, and it reminds him of the accident that took his parents away and left him alone. Feeling a rare moment of kindness, he takes out some money. He sits down and gives the old man cash and a carton of milk. He gently asks if the milk is still good and places it near the sign. It is a small, warm moment in the cold night. But suddenly the old man grabs his hand with surprising strength and says he is a truly good person. The protagonist is shocked as the old man begs to give him a reward and asks him to say his wish. His face turns red with embarrassment and annoyance. He tells himself he shouldn't have gotten involved and asks the old man to let go, but the old man's grip only gets stronger. The protagonist realizes he is not weak, yet he cannot move at all. The old man insists he came only to grant a wish to someone kind. The protagonist looks into his eyes and sees real desperation. The old man says he cannot go back to Santa's village unless he grants a wish. Feeling stuck, the protagonist sighs and asks if saying a wish will finally free him. The old man nods eagerly. After thinking for a moment and glancing at his own reflection, he begins to speak. He first jokes about wanting to win the lottery, but the old man refuses that and says he wants a real wish from the heart. This request brings a strange, quiet connection between them. A deep sadness fills the protagonist's face as old memories of loneliness come back. He realizes what he really wants is a family, a home that will never leave him. With a sad half-smile, he finally says his true wish: a wife as beautiful as a rabbit and a daughter as cute as a squirrel. The old Santa breathes in deeply, looking pleased, as if he can sense the loneliness inside him. He smiles a strange smile and says he is lucky to meet someone like him. Then suddenly his face turns dark and scary. His eyes glow red as he promises to give him a pure-hearted wife and an obedient daughter. Just as fast, his expression turns soft and warm again. He squeezes the man's hand one last time and wishes him a happy life. Frightened by the sudden change, the man pulls his hand away and runs, thinking the old man is crazy. Behind him, Santa shouts through the snow, saying he will use all his power to make the wish come true and that the whole village of Santa supports him. Shaken, the protagonist rushes into the subway, wanting to escape the strange moment. On the train, his hands hang between his knees as his mind spins with confusion. He tells himself the old man was just a madman, but he cannot deny that he really did say his wish out loud. Seeing a poster of a happy family on the train wall reminds him how much he wants that kind of happiness. Soon the quiet hum of the train makes him sleepy, and he falls into a troubled sleep. In his dream, a strange smell and a deep cold hit him. He wakes up suddenly, confused, and realizes with horror that he is completely naked. Cold air touches his skin as fear grows inside him. In front of him, a horse cart moves along a dirt road through a village he doesn't know. In panic, he realizes he is locked in an iron cage, his legs in heavy chains. Next to him sits a middle-aged man with long, messy hair and a thick beard. The cart is full of tired, hungry people. Looking at their torn clothes and the rusty iron bars, he starts to understand the horrifying truth. This place looks like it is from the Middle Ages. Cold sweat covers his body as he tries to accept what is happening. The guards outside speak a strange language he cannot understand. Nothing here feels familiar or modern. Whether this is a dream or not, he must accept the truth. He has been sent to another world. Time moves slowly in the cold, damp cage. He breathes hard, trying to think clearly even as his bare feet go numb from the cold floor. He looks at another prisoner lying in the corner and wonders if the man is even alive. Knowing he must survive, he crawls over, whispers a quiet sorry, and takes the shirt off the unmoving body. Wrapping the cloth around himself gives him a small bit of warmth. Behind him, the body of the dead prisoner lies cold on the floor, a harsh start to his new life. The scary promise from the crazy old Santa keeps echoing in his mind, and he fears this is how his wish is coming true. He wants badly to wake up from this nightmare. But the days pass while he stays locked in the cage, being taken toward an unknown fate. After a week of travel, he starts to understand his situation. First, they are all being treated as property. Second, the soldiers guarding them are not prison guards, they are slave traders. They are being taken across the land to be sold. Each time the cart stops in a village, the soldiers line up the captives so local buyers can check them and choose the strongest ones. Even though being a slave hurts his pride, a small hope grows in him. His strength might be his only way out of this cart. He believes someone will pick him soon. But as they pass through many villages and no one chooses him, his hopeful smile turns tired and forced. His hope slowly fades into deep despair. The cart keeps moving into strange, empty lands that feel farther and farther from anything he knows. Trapped in that tight space, his body finally gives up. He falls to the floor of the cage, wondering if there is any point in staying alive. In a weak, feverish state, he remembers his kind mother. She once told him to live fully no matter what happens. The memory of his younger, hopeful self clashes with the harsh reality of his chains now. He silently calls out to his parents, unsure if he can survive another day. Then the image of the mad Santa flashes in his mind. A burst of anger explodes inside him. He no longer cares about happiness or this new world. He just wants everything to end. He sees an old metal fork on the floor and grips it tightly, his jaw clenched. In that dark moment, happiness means only one thing to him: death. But as the fork touches his neck, he freezes. A last bit of stubborn will stops him. He refuses to die like an animal in a cage in this place. In the middle of his confusion, his deep wish for a home returns, and a soft, unfamiliar voice breaks into his thoughts. He looks up, stunned. Through the bars, a hand reaches out, offering him a piece of bread. It belongs to a beautiful woman with a warm, gentle smile. She places the bread in his shaking hand, saying something in that strange language he still cannot understand. A small, cute girl with golden hair peeks out from behind her, watching him with curious eyes. Surprised by them, the fork slips from his hand and falls to the floor. The cart finally stops in front of a small, cozy cabin deep in a quiet forest. He is taken inside, where the air feels far warmer than the cold cage. The woman and the girl sit at a simple table, eating together by the warm fireplace. The blonde girl eats her soup happily, filling the room with life. Watching her eat, the protagonist suddenly remembers the old man's wish: a wife as beautiful as a rabbit and a daughter as cute as a squirrel. He realizes the old man's promise was not just crazy talk, it is starting to come true. As the meal ends, the mother pushes her own bowl toward her daughter, telling her to eat more. But the girl looks up worried and refuses, saying that if she is hungry, her mother must be hungry too. The girl splits the food in half and pushes one bowl back to her mother, who sits frozen from the kindness. A look of warmth and happiness spreads on the mother's face as she accepts, and they eat together. Suddenly, a loud crash hits the door, and a man's voice announces himself as the village chief. Before they can react, the door bursts open and the frightened mother pulls her daughter into a tight hug. The cold chief announces that after their meeting, it was decided one of the men brought by the soldiers will become her new husband, and she must get ready to go with him to the mountain. Without another word, he turns and leaves, ordering her to bring food to the village gates at dawn for the soldiers. Completely broken, the woman collapses to the floor as painful memories of past beatings rush back. Shaking, she holds her daughter tightly, knowing there is no escape from this cruel fate. Looking at the sleeping girl, she thinks that even though they have only known each other a short time, she could never leave her. With tears in her eyes, she cannot bear to let the girl face the world alone. As if sensing her mother's pain, even in sleep, the girl's eyes fill with tears too, and she starts crying softly. Their cries fill the quiet cabin as mother and daughter hold each other in shared grief through the night. When the crying stops, the woman sits in the dark, staring blankly, wondering what will happen to her. In the shadows, she silently promises she will never again suffer the horrors of her past. Her eyes turn sharp with determination. She will not let this innocent girl suffer the same fate. The girl is only 5 years old, and she is the daughter of the woman's dead husband. As she sits there, painful memories return. The day her own father sold her for nothing more than a rabbit skin. She remembers her first day in this cabin, before she had even unpacked her things. The man who was supposed to be her husband hit her badly just because she arrived a little later than he wanted. That moment showed her that her painful life was only beginning. She remembers lying on the cold floor, thinking nothing could be worse than this. Then the violent man's daughter walked over quietly and sat beside her, watching her with a serious, gentle look. In that dark moment, this small girl became the only comfort she had. It was a clumsy but caring gesture that warmed her frozen heart. She realizes now that this child was the only good thing in her darkest days. Ever since the violent man went up the mountain to hunt and never came back, it has just been the two of them, surviving together. According to the villagers, the man was killed by wolves in the forest. When she heard the news, she felt a short moment of relief, but it was quickly replaced by a heavy fear. In this lawless land, a woman without a husband is like a lost sheep, always in danger. The next morning, with a heavy heart, She leads the girl to the village gates to face the fate the chief has decided. On the way, the girl suddenly points and shouts for her mother to look. There's a cart with an iron cage, and inside sits a man in the shadows. The mother stops, her heart beating fast. She walks closer, holding her daughter's hand. When the man lifts his head, she gasps, recognizing him. It is the same man she gave bread to before. Fear rushes back as she remembers her husband's violence, and she also remembers the desperate look in this man's eyes when she saw him holding a fork to his own throat. Just then, the village chief appears, angrily blaming them for causing trouble again. His cold presence makes them shake with fear. The memory of the fork stays in her mind, filling her with deep sympathy, since she knows that kind of desperation too well. Meanwhile, in the man's eyes, he only sees the same kind mother and child who once saved him from ending his life. Feeling many emotions, she reaches into her basket and pulls out another piece of bread. Keeping her head down to hide her feelings, she offers it to him again, a small act of kindness in a cruel world. That gentle moment finally stops him from wanting to die. He drops the fork and lets go of his dark thoughts. But the village chief interrupts again, his voice cold. He grabs the basket from her hands and orders her to return to the village so he can handle the new slaves. She obeys quietly, forcing a small smile for her daughter to comfort her, even though the girl can sense something is wrong. Inside the cage, the man holds the bread tightly, the last gift of kindness he received. Hungry, he eats a piece, trying to find strength. But his meal is interrupted when two soldiers burst in shouting. They drag him out of the cage and throw him onto the dirt, knocking his bread into the mud. He and two other slaves are forced to kneel before the chief, who coldly announces that the selection has begun. What happens next is horrifying. Without warning, the two soldiers draw their blades and kill the other two slaves right there. As they die, one soldier dips his finger in the blood and starts drawing symbols on paper. The papers suddenly glow with a strange blue light, and the man watches in shock, realizing this is real magic. Covered in cold sweat, he wonders how deep into this cruel world he has fallen. After a quiet talk between a soldier and the chief turns to the last surviving man. Confused and afraid, he has no idea what will happen to him next. Meanwhile, back at the small cabin, an older village woman visits the mother. She brings a bag of food, telling her to take it with her when she goes to the mountain house. She explains the village will give them food for a short time. The old woman warns her that her new husband won't understand her language and that any help given must eventually be repaid. She admits that no one in the village actually liked her late husband. They only tolerated his violence because the village needed hunters. But this time is different, she says. The new man might be a commoner, but the soldiers said that although his face looks rough, his hands and feet are soft like a nobleman's. Holding the mother's hand, the old woman tries to comfort her, saying that his soft hands suggest he isn't cruel, and if he works hard, they might finally live comfortably. But the mother lowers her head and says through quiet tears that she doesn't want comfort. She only wants a husband who isn't violent. She says she would be happy if he simply lets her and her daughter live quietly in a corner of the house. The next morning, loud banging on the door breaks the peace. The mother wakes with a jolt and pulls her sleepy daughter close. Looking through a crack in the wall, she is shocked to see the village chief dragging a man behind him. He bursts in and announces that he has brought her new husband. She gasps, the word husband catching in her throat. As the chief orders her to take him in, the man stumbles into the room, dazed and confused. Seeing him hurt and exhausted, she feels a sudden flash of anger and asks why they are dragging an injured man like an animal. In that moment, she realizes this broken man is the one meant to be her husband. She looks up at him in amazement at his huge size, unlike anything she has seen before. He tilts his head, confused by her reaction. Then he recognizes her. She is the same woman who gave him bread. He feels even more confused, not understanding why she is trembling in front of him. The chief grows impatient and grabs the man's hand, scolding him for standing still. He drags him toward the two frightened people and pushes him close to the woman, trying to arrange them like dolls. Seeing them both frozen with fear, he forces their hands together, declaring loudly that they are now husband and wife, and telling them not to be shy. Standing there with their hands joined by force, the two strangers look at each other, now bound together in a world that has already taken so much from both of them. Confused and unsure, the man tries to make sense of everything happening around him. As the heavy truth of his situation sinks in, standing next to the beautiful woman, a strange thought crosses his mind. He remembers the dark promise of the old Santa about a pure-hearted wife and an obedient daughter. Looking at her gentle, delicate appearance, he suddenly imagines her as a bride resembling a soft rabbit. The little girl with her big round eyes looks just like an adorable little squirrel. He cannot believe it. Could that crazy old man really have granted his wish? But even as he realizes this, a deep frustration rises in him. Being thrown into this cruel new world just to grant a wish feels like a cruel joke. Why couldn't the old man have given him this gently, instead of through so much pain and shame? He lowers his head, his face darkening with quiet anger. He swears that if he ever sees that Santa again, he will send him straight to hell. His anger is so strong that it feels like a wave of danger, making the mother and daughter, his rabbit and squirrel, shrink back in fear. After the forced introduction, the village chief and several men lead him into the nearby forest. The chief talks loudly, explaining something, but the man's head is spinning and he cannot understand a single word of the strange language. After the chief finishes talking, he turns to the other men as if making an important decision. Suddenly, a blond man steps forward and reaches out his hand. Thinking it is a friendly greeting, the man takes his hand politely, but he suddenly feels an extremely powerful squeeze. That squeeze was clearly meant to test his strength. The blond man pushes harder and harder, his face twisting with effort, while the man wonders if this is just a strange local greeting. But as the challenge becomes obvious, his brow tightens. With one easy squeeze back, he lifts the young villager clean off the ground. The man screams as he dangles in the air, and the sight shocks even the village chief, who cries out in alarm. The blond man's hand turns deep red under the pressure. After this small show of strength, the young man kneels on the ground, holding his aching hand, while the chief starts explaining something in a panic. He quickly hands him a bow and a quiver of arrows, as if giving him an important job. He takes the weapon, wondering why it is given to him, though he guesses it is not for another test of strength. Seeing his confusion, the chief starts using big gestures, even hopping like a rabbit, until it finally clicks. They want him to hunt. But just as he understands, the chief waves his hands wildly, as if he got it wrong, and points urgently toward the bushes, shouting for him to shoot now. He looks where the chief points and sees a small white rabbit calmly eating leaves. He looks back, confused since he has never used a bow before, but the chief keeps yelling for him to act. Despite never having done this, he takes a confident stance, though inside he doubts himself since even a skilled shooter could miss such a small target. Still, he releases the arrow, and it flies with surprising force, skimming the ground so closely that the rabbit jumps in fear and disappears into the bushes. Strangely, the chief starts jumping with joy, leaving him completely confused about why he is being praised for missing. The chief points excitedly at the empty grass, talking fast in words he cannot understand. Suddenly, a familiar shape catches his eye, and he turns around. He freezes, sweat rolling down his face, as he sees the mother and daughter approaching. For a brief moment, he truly sees that this gentle woman and sweet little girl are the very family he wished for. His heart races and his face turns shy and red. This sudden blush from such a huge man confuses everyone, especially the mother and daughter. After this awkward meeting, they share their first meal together in the quiet grove. Though tension still lingers in the air, they sit quietly across from each other. The mother makes a simple warm meal, a bowl of hot soup with vegetables and meat. As he prepares to eat, he keeps glancing at them, noticing their nervousness. But the moment he lifts his spoon, they flinch. He stops, keeping a calm face outside while his heart pounds inside. Then a rare, warm smile appears on his lips, melting his usual coldness. The word family echoes in his mind, something that felt impossible after years of loneliness. Yet now he has one, and it feels strange but comforting. Even though he is still upset about how he ended up here, he cannot deny the small happiness growing in his chest. He looks up at the sky and sighs, thinking he would still like to teach that old Santa a lesson if they ever meet again. But deep down, he feels grateful. The next day passes quickly as the small family, along with the village chief, begins the walk back to the mountain house. He carries the heavy bags easily but keeps looking back to check on the mother and daughter, worried they cannot keep up. He notices they already look tired after walking only a short way. Frustrated that he cannot speak their language to comfort them, he turns forward again with determination, promising himself he will learn to adapt to this new world quickly. Suddenly, he stops as a strong thought forms in his mind. He remembers advice his mother once gave him: when you want to protect someone, do not hesitate, run to their side right away. Holding on to that memory, he turns around and walks back toward them with full determination. They watch him approach, wide-eyed and afraid of his sudden movement. The little girl's eyes fill with tears, her lip trembling. To calm her, he slowly kneels down, softening his face into the kindest look he can manage, hoping to show he only wants to help. He only wants to hold them for a moment to show they are safe. But his large size and sudden approach only scare the mother more, since she does not understand his intentions. She presses her hands together, begging quietly for mercy, leaving him confused. Seeing her mother's fear, the little girl bursts into tears too. He sighs deeply, realizing his presence alone is enough to frighten them. He decides he cannot keep his face cold and unreadable anymore. He says a single word, asking for permission, even though he knows they won't understand, and gently places a hand on their shoulders. With surprising strength, he lifts them both at once as if they weigh nothing. Stunned, the mother and daughter freeze in the air. With a few careful adjustments, he settles her against his shoulder and tucks the little girl safely into his other arm, his face calm and steady. She stares at him in disbelief, amazed by his strength. He shifts gently, one arm holding her, the other cradling the child, standing firm like a mountain. The little girl's fear turns into excitement, and she gasps in wonder. Watching her, he feels a warm sense of responsibility grow in his chest. He turns to the mother, his voice soft, telling her to hold on tight. As they start walking, he is surprised that even with the bags in both of them, he feels no weight at all. He silently promises to learn the language and become the best hunter in the land so his family never goes hungry. Feeling her small hand grip his shoulder, he knows life ahead will be hard, but full of hope he has never felt before. As they move through the trees, he feels her warmth against him, and sweat rolls down his neck. Suddenly her hand touches his, a shy, gentle touch. Without a word, he places his hand over hers, forming a quiet bond between two strangers. In that moment, fear seems to fade, replaced by a growing peace as they rest against his strong back. Without complaint, he carries them all the way until the mountain cabin comes into view. The chief, seeming grateful for his effort, tells him to rest before disappearing into the misty mountains. He stands quietly, watching the chief vanish, now alone with his new family. He looks up at the wooden cabin that will be his new home, thinking it might be even colder than his old apartment. Painful memories of being chained in the freezing cage flash through his mind, filling him with quiet anger at the cold outdoors. Shaking off these thoughts, he takes a deep breath and places his hand on the door, ready for a new beginning. He gently pushes it open and steps inside with hope in his heart. But he freezes the moment he sees her inside. Her face looks confused, her cheeks flushed red. Noticing fresh tears, he rushes to her, asking worriedly why she is crying. But she says nothing. Suddenly she turns and runs out the door, leaving him standing there in shock. Turning back to look inside the house, his heart drops as he sees the truth. The house is completely empty. Even the shelves have been taken from the walls. He stands frozen at the door, unable to understand the harsh reality before him. It turns out that while she and her daughter were at the village gates, the neighbors had come and taken everything from the cabin, furniture, tools, everything needed to survive. She curls into a ball outside, shivering in the cold mountain air, sinking into despair. With no tools to fix the house or weapons to defend against wild animals, they are completely defenseless. When he finds her hiding in the shadows, he speaks softly to let her know he is there. Without another word, he sits beside her, keeping a respectful distance while sharing the heavy silence. Seeing her cry, he reaches out and gently strokes her hair, offering quiet comfort. His gentle touch makes her sobs catch in her throat, and she looks up at him with wide, surprised eyes. He gives her a small, reassuring smile, trying to show she has nothing to fear. For a moment, she truly feels the honesty in his eyes. Still, confusion lingers on her face. This is the man she must live with, yet they cannot even talk to each other, and he, who is supposed to protect her, doesn't even know how to hunt. In this harsh wilderness, she wonders if they can really survive. Despite her growing worry, a small, confident smile appears on his face. He looks directly into her eyes and in a calm, steady voice promises to protect her, even though she still feels doubt and fear. Gently, he holds her face in his hands, a gesture full of respect and care. A single tear rolls down her cheek, this time not from fear, but from a strange warmth and trust beginning to grow as the sun sets. As the tear falls, a quiet peace fills her chest, and she wonders why this stranger's presence feels so comforting. His mind drifts back to his old world, where he had been completely alone since his parents died. He had always fought hard just to survive, and his hand tightens into a fist as a silent promise of strength. Now that he finally has a family, he has even more reason to stay strong through hard times. He taps his chest with determination, vowing to do whatever it takes to provide for them. That silent vow breaks something in her, and she finally cries without holding back. Without a word, he pulls her close, letting her rest her head on his shoulder so she can release all her pain. At that same moment, the little girl, watching from afar, runs toward them in fierce protection. She wraps her small arms around her mother from behind, shouting for him to stop upsetting her. In an instant, the three of them are wrapped in a clumsy group hug, forming their first true image of a real family. Holding the crying woman, he feels an emotion he has never known before. The little girl cries too, and questions swirl in his mind about the girl's father, why this woman was kind enough to give him bread when she had so little, and what pain led to her tears. He pushes the questions aside, believing that if they try together, they can become a real family. Holding them both tightly, he makes one final promise. He will make them happier than anyone else in the world. He will never let them cry again, and he will become the best husband and father this world has ever seen. He will do everything he can so that one day they will never regret choosing him as family. After this emotional moment, the sun sets, casting long shadows over the small wooden cabin meant to be their new home. Yet once inside the empty house, the three of them sit across from each other in an awkward silence. He thinks the hug should have brought them closer, but it feels like they are back at the start. She feels that this man is still a mystery, a stranger in every way. Still, she knows they must find a way to live together, even without knowing where to begin. Suddenly, an idea hits him and he snaps his fingers to get their attention. He leans forward, determined to break the awkwardness between them. Pointing to his chest, he introduces himself clearly, Kim Hwan. He repeats slowly, hoping that even without words, they can at least learn each other's names. It works. She looks up, surprised, and softly repeats the sound back. Seeing this, he reaches out his hand, silently asking for her name. She hesitates, then whispers, Ri. She says it again, clearer this time. Ri, he says with a bright smile. What a beautiful name. He then turns to the little girl and asks her name just as gently, but she says nothing, curling shyly against her mother, which strikes him as strange. Looking into her innocent but distant eyes, he realizes she may not have a name at all. A deep sadness fills him for the girl's hard life. Without hesitation, he strokes her hair gently and decides to give her a name of her own. Dorothy, he says, thinking of the girl from The Wizard of Oz, a brave girl who went on a great adventure with loyal friends and found happiness. The child tries to repeat it, stumbling over the new sounds. Dorothy, he laughs softly, telling her the name will bring her friendship and love. Hearing this, her face lights up with a bright smile, and she says it perfectly this time. Dorothy, ready to start their new life, he begins working right away, swinging his axe into wood with strong, steady strikes. From a distance, she watches him quietly, thinking about this strange man. He is stronger and bigger than her late husband, yet instead of being cruel, he is gentle and caring toward her. He is unlike anyone she has ever known, as if he belongs to another world. She calls out softly, Juan. Even though she doesn't know where he came from, his name feels warm on her tongue. In her whole life, no one has ever shown her this kind of kindness. She wonders why he is being so good to her. No matter how she looks at him, he simply doesn't seem to belong in this rough, faraway village. Suddenly, he turns, smiles, and says her name, Ri. In that moment, she notices something. His dark hair and deep eyes match old rumors she has heard about a warring country that once summoned a legendary hero with those same features. A wild thought crosses her mind. Could a real hero with dark hair and eyes really be standing in front of her? As he comes closer, she cannot stop comparing him to the legend. But she also feels unsure. Surely a great hero wouldn't appear in such a small, forgotten village. Besides, the story was never confirmed, just a rumor. As he steps closer, she feels shy and confused, tilting her head up to look at this tall, powerful man, her heart racing with uncertainty and a hope she is almost afraid to feel. Looking closer, she realizes his hair is actually deep brown, not black, and his eyes are the same warm color. She lets out a quiet sigh of relief, telling herself he is probably just a naturally strong man. But then her mind goes blank. Why does she feel so relieved and calm when they only just met today? Confusion shows on her flushed face, creating a shy, gentle mood between them. Suddenly, he reaches out and strokes her head, a soft, lingering touch that leaves her frozen, since she has never felt anything like it before. In her painful past, every hand raised toward her head brought pain. But this time, his touch is only gentle, filled with warmth she has never known. Instead of flinching away, she feels strangely comfortable, secretly wishing the feeling would never end. For a brief moment, she wants him to keep touching her hair forever. Noticing the change in her, he pulls her slightly closer, his own face turning red. Wrapped in this new tenderness, her face glows with quiet happiness. Without warning, he leans in slowly, closing the space between them. A soft, unexpected kiss touches her lips, leaving her eyes wide with surprise. Yet she does not pull away. In that single moment, all her worries and the distance between them disappear, leaving only the sweetness of a first kiss. After the kiss, he pulls back suddenly, shocked by his own boldness, his face turning deep red. He stammers, unable to find words, his hands fidgeting nervously as he looks for something to do. His shyness is obvious. To escape the awkward moment, he quickly grabs a nearby wooden bucket as an excuse. He holds onto it tightly, trying to keep his composure, and without a word, runs off toward the stream, leaving her standing there alone and stunned. She stays where she is, her face burning and her heart racing, still feeling the sweetness of the kiss. Meanwhile, he walks alone by the water, scolding himself for acting so suddenly. He reminds himself that even though they are technically husband and wife, they are really just strangers who met only hours ago. The more he thinks about it, the more troubled he feels. They cannot even speak the same language, and he has no idea how to handle this new situation. He paces around, trying to clear his mind. Lost in thought, he wanders further than he realizes. Suddenly, a chilling howl echoes through the forest, breaking the silence. He snaps back to attention, telling himself he needs to get the water quickly and return. But a shiver runs down his spine, and cold sweat forms on his forehead. From the darkness, a massive wolf slowly appears, its eyes glowing red like burning coal. It blocks his path, growling low, showing sharp, terrifying teeth. This is a true beast of the night. He steps back tensely, sweat covering his body as he faces the creature. The wolf gives off a deadly aura that chills him to the bone, clearly a dangerous predator. He stands still, gripping the bucket tightly, trying to stay calm before the attack. But instead of giving in to fear, he slowly lowers himself, sets the bucket down, and stares back without blinking. He grabs a fallen log nearby, a rough weapon, but the only thing he has. He holds it tightly, his eyes steady, ready for a fight to the death. The wolf lunges at him with terrifying speed, and he throws himself forward to meet it. He uses the log to block its powerful bite, the force of the hit shaking through his whole body. The impact pushes him to use all his strength. But the wolf is not just powerful, it is wild. He cries out in pain as he is thrown backward, slamming into a tree hard enough to leave him dazed. Refusing to give up, he lets out a fierce roar and charges forward, trying to grab the beast by the throat. Gritting his teeth, he tells himself he will not die in this terrible place, putting all his will and survival instinct into one last effort. His eyes burn with the fire of someone pushed to his limit. With a loud shout, he prepares to strike the final blow. As he swings, a burning pain shoots through his arm, as if strange energy is surging through him. Suddenly, a sharp sound rings out, and to his shock, a bright golden light bursts from his hand. The wolf growls, but the fire in his hand burns even fiercer, wrapping around the beast. Stunned, he watches as the flames explode with a power he never knew he had. He climbs onto the wolf's back, pouring all this new strength into his burning fist, aiming to bring the predator down. He unleashes a powerful fire-filled strike that shatters the night. The wolf falls, its life gone instantly, leaving only a dark patch of blood on the ground. Even after the wolf stops moving, he keeps throwing punches into the air, his body running on pure adrenaline as he releases all the tension from the fight. Finally exhausted, he collapses onto the grass, staring at his hands in disbelief, certain he had just seen them burning with fire. He lifts his hands to the moonlight and sees his skin is unharmed and his clothes untouched by the fire. It is a strange mystery. Lying there in shock, he tries to accept that he just used magic. He remembers the strange blood rituals the soldiers had done and thinks that traveling to another world and gaining powers is a common idea in the stories he knows. Maybe he has become one of those heroes. He raises his hand to the sky, filled with sudden hope, and shouts, "Invoke fire!" But only the rustling leaves answer him in silence. He tries again and again, his voice growing more desperate, trying bigger spells like Firestorm and Flame Wall, even shouting big phrases like Dragon's Breath or Spirit of the Earth, arise. After it all fails, he lies back down, disappointed, though he knows what happened earlier was real. The wounds from hitting the tree have partly healed on their own. Looking at the stars, he realizes this power could be his greatest tool for hunting and caring for his family. He smiles, picturing a future where he can give Rai and Dorothy comfort and joy. In a village with no doctor, this healing power could be a true miracle. He sits up, determined to understand this power better, sure that if it happened once, it can happen again. As he sits quietly, painful memories return. Soon after his parents died, he also lost his grandfather, the only person who truly cared for him. Even though his grandfather seemed healthy, he died in a sudden accident, leaving him alone with cruel relatives. He remembers the funeral clearly, how a relative had hit him and shouted that he was cursed and had caused his father's and brother's deaths. From that day, everyone treated him like bad luck, even though he was just a high school student trying to survive. Back in the present, he looks at the dead wolf with a tired smile, pushing away the old memories. He lifts the heavy animal onto his shoulders, knowing he must return before more predators come. He knows skinning it will be hard work, but possible. He remembers his grandfather again, recalling days spent watching him prepare chickens and rabbits on the farm. Looking at the moon, he thinks his grandfather would be proud of him now. Still, one question remains: how can he learn to control this wild new power? Inside the warm cabin, the mother and daughter prepare dinner. Dorothy runs excitedly to bring a bowl to her mother, her face full of joy. The mother smiles and thanks her, which makes Dorothy beam even brighter. After helping, the little girl skips around happily near the fire. Suddenly, a strange sound outside catches her attention, and she stands on her toes to look through the window. She tilts her head, trying to see in the dark. But when a huge wolf suddenly appears, Dorothy screams in fear. She falls backward as her mother, heart racing, calls out for her. Without hesitation, the mother grabs a simple kitchen knife, the only weapon she has, and rushes to the door, yelling for Dorothy to get behind her. When she opens the door, she freezes in fear. There is the man, kneeling on the ground with a huge wolf carcass on his shoulders, looking exhausted. Thinking he is being attacked, she screams his name in panic, filled with protective fear. Surprised, he calls out to them in confusion. But she doesn't stop, raising her knife, ready to defend him. Only when she realizes the wolf is already dead does the knife slip from her hand, embarrassment washing over her.